they were all here for the... Yeah. We have everybody that wasn't here for the 2-minute meeting abstained.
April 15th.
15th, okay.
Right, like you couldn't have.
But I mean, it's one
Done
more.
deal now.
I think we just let it go. I call to order the Rosemount Planning Commission meeting for Monday, March 18th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda?
Madam Chair, there are no additions, although staff would just like to note item 6A, that applicant has requested the item be continued.
Thank you. So we will open the public hearing and then continue it
Yes,
to the April 23rd meeting.
yes.
Perfect. Is there any input from the audience today on items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the consent agenda. Are there any questions from the commissioners on the consent agenda?
Yes. Yes, Madam Chair. So I was not at the regular meeting on February 26th. However, I am comfortable voting on that because I've reviewed the minutes. I just have one comment, however, that I think maybe a change needs to be made. Under adjournment, it says a special meeting will be held at 6:30 in the council chambers on March 6th to approve the items within this agenda. And the purpose is not necessarily to approve, it's to hear or review the items on the agenda. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear for the record that we weren't, I don't think the planning commission was intending to approve, prior to actually entertaining, reviewing, discussing. So I thought maybe changing that word.
I think that sounds like a good call out. Alicia? Are you good with that?
Maybe change to review, is that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Whitman, consider the items. Is that
Yeah.
the proposed change?
Okay.
We can change it to consider. I just don't have a motion since I wasn't made aware of this requested change
That's okay.
beforehand.
We got it.
Yep.
Yes, Commissioner
I
Tiergarten.
think I was not at the February 26th meeting.
That is okay. The majority of our commission was not at the February 26th meeting, so I think if you have reviewed the minutes, I will ask you to vote tonight, because if we have everybody that wasn't here abstain, we won't have quorum, because that's why we didn't have the meeting.
Yes,
So-
I can vote on it.
So if you feel comfortable, please proceed with voting. Yes. Any other comments or questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the modification requested by Commissioner Whitman to the February 26th regular meeting minutes to change the word approve to consider.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Reed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes our consent agenda section. We do not have any old business this evening, so we will move forward to public hearings. The first public hearing on our agenda is a request by Enclave Companies for approval of a rezoning of the subject property from R4 PUD to R3 PUD and a major amendment to the Amber Fields planned unit development to construct 132 townhomes on Lot 1, Block 1, Amber Fields 6th Edition. And with that, Anthony, I'm assuming you'll hold all presentation and stuff to the next meeting.
Yeah, I can just give a little bit of a description. This is the north central portion of Amber Fields. It was originally approved for a much higher number of rental townhomes. That was by Continental, and they withdrew their plans, and this is the new proposal for that site. So staff will have a complete presentation at the April meeting.
Sounds good, thank you. At this time, I will open up the public hearing for this item. Anyone in the audience this evening that would like to speak may do so at this time, but we would encourage you to come back for the April 23rd meeting. And seeing no one in the audience here to speak on this item this evening, I will make a motion to continue the public hearing for Enclave Companies to the April 23rd Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Reed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Again, that item will be continued to the April 23rd Planning Commission meeting. You can watch the city's website for information. There will not necessarily be another notice, so please make note of that. We will move forward to the next item on our public hearing agenda this evening, which is a request by Maplewood Development for approval of the Amberfield 17th Edition preliminary and final plats to create 120 single-family lots. And Julia, I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right, again, this is for Amberfield 17th Edition, preliminary and final plats. So a little bit of an overview. The Planning Commission is being asked to consider a request by Maplewood Development for approval of preliminary and final plats for Amberfield 17th Edition to create 120 single-family residential lots. So a little bit of an overview of the site location. So this addition is located within the south central area of Amberfield's development. It's going to be located west of Amberfield's 13th and 14th, which are those ones adjacent to Akron Avenue, and then also located east of Amberfield's second edition and also 16th edition, which the commission did see at the last Planning Commission meeting. Then a little overview of the master development plan that was originally approved. So you can see that it's in that L area, and it's it's consistent with what was approved back with the original Amberfield's development master plan. So a little bit of an overview of the site. So the area is 31.56 acres in size, and again has that 120 lots proposed throughout it. There are 8 lots proposed throughout the site. 4 of the outlots will be buffer areas between adjacent Amberfields additions that you can see on the site plan. Then also 3 outlots will be reserved as open space throughout that plat area. And then there will be 1 outlot which will have a connection trail to that central park area, which you've seen different outlots with trail connections throughout different additions as well. And then there are 2 access roads into and out of the site, which will be the eastern portion, which will be coming from Amberfield's 13th and 14th edition, and also off of Akron Avenue, and then also a western access road, which will lead to Amberfield's 16th edition and 2nd edition. The eastern access road will be built first, and you can see that there are 2 looped roads throughout the development, as well as 2 internal roads that will connect those 2 looped roads, and then also 2 extensions off of those 2 looped roads, which those extensions are there for future connections of development to the south. As you can see, this eastern connection does have that temporary cul-de-sac shown, but the western portion does not, and that is a condition of approval that the plat be updated to show a temporary cul-de-sac in that western connection too. So here's an overview of the phasing plan. So the first phase that you can see is going to be in that green, which is the eastern portion. That will consist of 42 single-family lots and also the eastern access to the site and then portions of the internal roadway system. Second phase will be in the middle of the area, which will consist of 43 lots, and as well as that connection trail to the central park area. And then the final phase will consist of 35 lots, and then the remaining portion of those internal roadway system and also that western access point to Amberfield's 16th edition. So here's an overview of the lot standards. So Amberfield 17th edition is pretty similar to other editions you've seen. It's similar to the size of Amberfield's 15th edition and also Amberfield's 2nd edition as well. So this is being built by David Weekley. So these lots that are being proposed are larger than the original David Weekley lots that you saw early on with the Amberfield's development. So utility plans, so the site will be served by sanitary sewer and water, which will be located in the access roads, the western and eastern access roads. The city's engineer has provided a memo containing comments related to the submitted plans, which was part of the attachments. And then conformance with all those requirements will be also a condition of approval that will need to be followed. And then here's a landscape plan. So there's 170 trees proposed to be planted throughout the site, which is more than actually what was required, which is about 134 trees, which was required. A landscape surety in the amount of $56,100 will be required as a condition of approval as well. And then here's an overview of the final plat. So you can see that the portion to the east will be platted as Amberfield 17th edition, and then the remaining area will be outlotted as Outlot D, which they'll have to come forward for final plats for those 2 other phases that they plan on having developed for the preliminary plat area. And then here's showing the final plat area. So it's that eastern access road from Amberfield's 13th and 14th, and then also the lots and portions of the internal roadway system. So the recommended action in front of the commission today will be to recommend the city council approve the preliminary and final plats for Amberfield 17th edition, subject to conditions 1 through 7. At this time, I can take questions that the commission may have, or, yeah.
Thank you, Julia. I just have one, can you go back to your lot standards slide? I just want to make sure I'm reading it right, and I meant to ask you ahead of time.
Yeah.
The 5 feet dwelling underneath the Amberfield 17th edition, that's on the 45-foot wide lots? Like on the left side, it says 45 wide and
Yeah.
so those same things apply over there, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's what I assumed, but I wanted to just confirm. Are there any questions from the commission for Julia? Seeing no questions, we will open up the public hearing for this item at this time. Anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item may do so at this time, coming to the podium, stating your name and address for the record. Seeing no one in the audience to speak on this item, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Hebert to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Any final comments from the commission before we move forward on this item?
I just comment, it seems pretty straightforward. We've seen plans before, and this is consistent with those, and I thought well thought out and planned, so no objections or concerns for my part. Yeah. I'll make a motion to recommend the City Council approve the preliminary and final plats for Amberfield 17th edition, subject to conditions 1 through 7.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Reed and seconded by Commissioner Whitman. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This item will move forward to City Council at their April 16th meeting. And the next public hearing item on our agenda this evening is a request by First State Bank of Rosemount for approval of a PUD final site and building plan and a conditional use permit for drive-through facilities. And I will turn this over to Anthony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is a request for both a final site and building plan and a conditional use permit. This is the first commercial development in this part of the city. So first out the gate, something that I know the residents in that part of Rosemount will be very excited to see. The applicant has applied for a final site and building plan. This is the second step in the two-step planned unit development process. The overall planned unit development for Prestwick Place was approved in 2007, and this area of the planned unit development was slated for commercial uses at that time. So the final site and building plan of the PUD process is essentially the same thing as a site plan review, just for sites within planned unit developments. There is a plat for the site that needs to be approved prior to building permits being issued, so that is a condition of approval for that. In addition to the final site and building plan, the applicant has applied for a conditional use permit for drive-through facilities. The proposed building contains 2 drive-throughs, one for a coffee shop use and the second for a bank use. First State Bank of Rosemount will be constructing a second branch of their institution on this site. And then just note that the applicant has applied for a minor amendment to the planned unit development for a slight reduction in stacking spaces within the drive-through associated with the bank. There's also a condition for updating the landscape plan to provide some additional screening and an additional tree. Here's the site itself. It's in the northwest quadrant of that intersection of Akron Avenue and County Road 42. To the north of the site is the Roars building, a Roars apartment building that's being built. You can see the outline of the footprint here that was part of the mass grading when this aerial was taken. There's an internal east-west roadway that would connect Abbey Field to Akron Avenue, and then within this site, there will be some internal driveways as well. Immediately east of this parcel is a parcel that staff is anticipating an application for a gas station in the next few months. And the owner of this overall site will be platting one parcel to the west of that previously platted parcel, and then the applicant's parcel here, which will be further subdivided with that plat as it comes through to the Planning Commission for review. So as I said, the site has been designated for commercial development. It is also zoned C4 PUD in the city's zoning map shown there in red. A little bit of context as well about the site here. To the east of Akron Avenue is the site where the Lifetime Fitness facility is being built. There's some lots that will be further developed for commercial use. And then southwest of Akron and 42 is commercial development as well. This is the Roars parcel. Schaefer Richardson is constructing a couple apartment buildings just north and east of that as well. So here's the site plan for the proposed commercial building. As I said, there is some internal drives that will provide some access off of Abbey Field and that east-west road. Here's the parcel that would be created out of the large overall lot, and then the applicant's plat will be in line with these parcel boundaries here. So Lot 1, another user in Lot 2, and then the northern portion here is an infiltration basin that was designed to serve the commercial areas in this part of the community. Also note the drive-through for the coffee shop will have 2 lanes going down to a single lane where the service or sale will occur. And then the bank's drive-through will have 2 lanes on the west side of the building. The stacking here, you can see there's 6 vehicles can fit in each of these lanes. On the financial institution side, it's 4 vehicles stacking here. Now, staff is supportive of that reduction from 6 to 4. The minor amendments to the plan unit development are the purview of the council. So staff is recommending that the commission condition their recommendation on the approval of that minor amendment to the planned unit development. The site has parking on the east and south side here and some pedestrian access from this bituminous trail into the site. Trash enclosure will be located on the north portion of the site to allow easy access for those vehicles. The applicant did provide a floor plan to show a little bit of how the space will work. There is the coffee shop counter in the northern portion of the building here, some seating for the coffee shop, some more lounge-like seating here in this portion of the building, and then the bank function is on the west side here with the teller windows, the drive-through, some workstations and offices, and also a community room for the for use by members of the public. There's also an outdoor seating area with 10 seats. No special conditional use permit is required for outdoor seating with less than 11 seats. So the applicant's plan includes 33 parking stalls. The requirement for the coffee shop use is 1 per 3 seats. There's 33 seats total for that use. The bank requirement is based on the size of the building. So 1 per 400 square feet. This is just calculating using the entire building's square footage. So it's not really taking into account any overlap of those uses. So it's well parked with 33 stalls, which is above the 26 that would be required by those 2 uses. Basically, what I'm saying is if it was a bank and a coffee shop as 2 buildings, it would be 26 stalls. So there's some gain there by having that combined in one building, but they are meeting the parking requirement without that. The applicant's landscape plan provides a mix of trees, some trees along the northern boundary of that stormwater pond, trees along the rights of way. There's landscaping in the parking lot as required by the code, as well as foundation plantings in the more visible portions of the site. There is one tree that should be added to make up the total required for the parking lot landscaping, and some additional foundation plantings should be provided along the south side to provide some visual screening and to mitigate any lights that might be shining to the south. So here's a breakdown of that landscaping requirement. One tree per 3,000 square feet is the standard in this for this type of use. That equates to 21 trees. The applicant has provided 24 trees and 32 foundation plantings, 1 per 10 linear feet. That is the standard in the C4 zoning district. The applicant has 102 shrubs shown on the site. And then parking lot landscaping, in addition to that area calculated tree requirement of 7 trees, the applicant has 6 in the parking lot areas, so 1 should be added. That is a condition of approval that staff is recommending. Also want to note too briefly about the site plan. It does meet all the setback requirements for the C4 zoning district. It more than doubles the standard of 30 feet from the southern property line for the building and 20 for the parking. All of the setbacks are well beyond that, except to note that the parking does have a 10-foot setback, which is met because there is that shared drive here. The applicant's elevations show a mix of materials. Over half of the facade would be composed of brick or natural stone with some architectural metal paneling in horizontally aligned placement. The applicant also provided a elevation for their trash enclosure that meets the city code requirement with complementary materials to the principal structure. Also, the building features no more than 10% EFIS, which is an exterior insulation finishing system. It's kind of like a exterior foam material that's more looks like a stucco. That is something that the city code does try to avoid extensive use of. So the exterior elevations provided by the applicant's submittal does fall within the requirements of the city code for that. Also want to note the applicant did provide a lighting plan with showing 20-foot tall pole-mounted lights. That is within the maximum allowed by the city code, and the photometric study does show that illumination at the property boundaries does not exceed the limit set by the city code. Also just want to note too, utilities, sanitary sewer will be accessed from the main within the County Road 42 right-of-way, and water will be coming from the main located within Abbeyfield Avenue. So with regards to the conditional use permit for the drive-through facilities, there's 7 generic standards that all CUPs must meet. They are basic things like must be harmonious with the comprehensive plan, adequately served by existing or proposed public facilities, and will not involve uses that would be detrimental to adjacent property. But there are some specific standards related to drive-through facilities, and these are all highlighted in detail in the staff report, but I wanted to call out just a few of them. Mainly, the drive-through facilities must be designed to limit their impacts on adjacent properties. They have to have 6 stacking stalls per lane. As I said, the applicant has requested a reduction to 4 for the financial institution drive-through, as well as some screening requirements and that the public address system should be inaudible from commercial use. So as I said, those are all detailed in the staff report, and any places that improvements to the applicant's plan must be needed have been called out in the conditions, the recommended conditions of approval. So with that being said, staff is recommending approval of the 2 requests subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. I'm happy to take any questions the commission may have. I know the applicant and their architects are here, and they are probably even more excited about this project than staff is, and would be happy to speak to it as well.
Thank you, Anthony. Are there any questions from the commission for Anthony at this time?
Yeah, Anthony, and this may be one for the applicant, but I'm just curious, I'd like to look more about the flow of traffic in and out. It's kind of hard to pick up.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. And I also do want to note that the city's engineering staff did review this. The flow coming in for this drive-through will come out and it'll turn right to exit. Vehicles coming in here will come down, so they'll have kind of a movement where they're not conflicting. So that's kind of the intent for the traffic there. 2-lane drives on the south and east sides, but these drive-throughs are really kind of focusing traffic in a way that avoids conflict.
Now, is traffic on the left side or west side?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was going to pull up a little aerial so you can see the context of the site too.
Yeah, if you go back, yeah. So the drive on the left or west side of the building there.
Yep.
Is that one-way south or, well, it seems like it's,
No, they would both be heading south.
okay.
Yeah, both lanes.
Oh, right. So, I mean, so for cars though, can they exit by going sort of a little counterclockwise, if you will, up around and north on the left side there or the west
Up
side?
here, this
Yes.
way? Yeah, they could. They could. I think the general flow of traffic would be more coming down counterclockwise this way, or coming this way and going down.
Is the
Now, there's certainly some signage if it's exit only, or drive-through traffic only. That's something that we could work with the applicant on as well.
Okay.
I kind of see what Commissioner Reed's going for, like on that portion where you would come in by the bank drive-through. It doesn't seem like there's enough room for cars to go north and south there and have the stacking for the cars. So it does seem like
Sure.
it's almost like you've got to have it as a one-way.
It is one way.
Yeah, there's an arrow here. I would ask the applicant if that's
Okay.
their intent to
They're
sign
pointing
it.
to us. I think they're telling us it's one way.
So I've got more questions, but I'll hold
I have a
them until
question,
the
too.
applicant.
Line them up.
Certainly.
Do you want to wait till we open the public hearing?
It's up to you.
I just want to talk to the traffic.
Okay.
In our current facility in downtown, since we moved our drive up to the north side of our building, I can't remember having 4 cars stacked, especially in the outside lane. It may happen on the one closest to the building, but, so there would potentially be enough for someone to get,
For someone to move that way, yeah.
to be able to come down, but it would make traffic flow much better to have it all be a one-way coming around and having them use the east side driveway to go back up.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think-
that with two stacking lanes for the bank, I mean, granted, the code is for 6 cars to stack, but I think because there's 2 of them there and with the use of it, I don't think that that's a problem. It's just if there's two-way traffic, they're getting around. But hopefully drivers are smart, and if it's congested over there, they don't go that way.
I have a question too, or
Yeah.
a comment. I'm more concerned about the coffee traffic because in the morning, everybody likes to get their coffee. That's going to become a busy section of commercial there on the corner, I'm anticipating, with a gas station at some point too. Is it the applicant that I would ask what time the coffee shop opens, or?
Yeah, certainly I would defer to the applicant on what they see as peak times for either of those drive-throughs. It's staff's understanding that the drive-through for the coffee shop would be much earlier in the day, where the peak traffic in the bank's drive-through is a little bit later. But they can speak to that
Got
as
it.
well.
Thanks.
I have 2 questions, Anthony. The pedestrian access, is that sort of south of the crosswalk where there's number 10 there?
This spot right here,
Yeah. Is that coming off of,
that's coming off of Abbey Field.
okay, and that's is that a crosswalk depicted there?
Yeah.
Cool. And then the future addition, 1,500 square feet, is on there?
I think they just slated that as a spot. We haven't had any conversations about what they would be, so maybe they can speak to that a little bit more as well. But we would definitely be reviewing that, just because, first of all, it would go through at least at minimum a zoning review. It may not require a full site plan review, but it would have to meet all the requirements of the code for parking and things like that.
Anthony, just to confirm, the road that is at the top of this picture that's cut off is not, yeah, so it's a new road that's being built. It's not that road that connects Akron and Abbeyfield.
Correct. I would say it's more of a drive.
Interior
Yeah.
type, okay, thank you. So you're gonna come in off of Akron and then take that drive down and over, or come from Abbeyfield. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Anthony? Okay, thank you, Anthony. At this time, we will open up the public hearing for this item. Anyone in the audience would like to speak on this item may do so at this time, coming to the podium, stating your name and address for the record. And we would invite the applicant back up if you want to speak a little bit to the coffee shop hours and bank hours. If I can just get you to state your name and address for the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Toombs, First State Banker, Rosemount. And I'm the president of the bank. I actually live in Lakeville, but the bank's current address is 3025 145th Street West. And then I have with me is Sean Roboyne from HTG Architects, who has helped, they've done the work on the site plan.
So we had a question from Commissioner Rivera on the coffee shop hours, the peak hours of the coffee
So-
shop, the bank, the traffic flow.
The bank's hours are probably going to be similar to what we currently have, to where the drive-up's open at 7 o'clock in the morning till 5:30, Monday through Friday, and then from 8 to noon on Saturdays. Coffee shop, some of the, we do not have one finalized yet as to who we're choosing, but our plan is to have more of a mom and pop, not a national brand, so that it fits more with a community bank's feel, in that it, you know, it's not going to be a Starbucks or a Caribou. It'll be something other than that. But from the couple that I have talked to, they have said that it'll probably be 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, till probably 4, 5 o'clock. Their closing may be similar to ours, but it all depends on what the flow of traffic is for them as they get established out there.
Okay. Do you anticipate, I think, and I don't want to put words in Commissioner Rivera's mouth, but I think some of the concern is a lot of morning traffic going through the coffee shop drive-through and a lot of traffic to the drive-through. Can you speak a little bit to what your peak hours are that you see at the drive-through now?
Well, with the bank, it's, you know, as the years have gone by, traffic for drive-through has become less and less as stuff has become more digital. But we still need to have that access. There would also be an ATM on the outside of the building, so that might have a little bit of an impact. But like I said earlier, in a normal business day that we're at now, which we've been in the site since 1959, we have, typically it might be 1 to 2 car, 2 cars at a time. Sometimes it might be too deep, but most of the time, right away at 7 o'clock, it's 1 or 2 cars. Our branch now, most of the people that come a little bit earlier, some of them are businesses that are getting ready to start their day, where having this site, it's probably more retail or consumer focused because of all of the housing that's currently there or is coming into the area, so.
Okay. I didn't want to steal your thunder if you have other questions along that same line.
No, in fact, I was, the fact that you mentioned it's not a national brand, it's kind of a nice touch to
Yeah,
it
I
as
mean,
well.
that is something for us as a community bank. We would love to have it be a local entity, whether it's one that's currently in town or one that just wants to have a little bit more of a hometown feel, so.
So historically, his high-volume traffic for drive-up will be from 3 to 5:30, and the coffee's gonna be early in the morning. So they have different peak times. So that's why it will work well. There'll be a few cars coming in, like he talked about, his commercial customers, but most of the consumers are gonna be afternoon to evening when they're on their way home from work.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant at this time?
Yeah, just kind of follow, can you like walk through the traffic? So, looking at the diagram, cars coming in for drive up for coffee, they get their coffee, they can make essentially a right-hand, almost a U-turn to go back out towards Akron, right?
Yeah, correct. So traffic will be able to circulate along that connector road that's just south of the retention pond. It will have both east and west direction. As they come in, either off of I'm just going to call it the ring road for the apartments, they can go south that connects, and what we're presuming is there's going to be a daycare to the west of us, and then potentially a gas station, as Anthony has said. We don't know exactly who it is. But then they'll share that north and south direction, but then they'll be able to come in those. They'll also be able to come in Abbeyfield and be able to go east or west if they wanted to connect to the daycare or not, or come down and circulate through the coffee drive-up. But the west side drive-up will be a north direction only, and we have a bypass there, so if there's a larger vehicle, it can get around the stacking cars without affecting
You mean a
the
south
canopy.
direction only?
I'm sorry, south,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Going south. So that's just a bypass only, and we made that extra large just because vehicles are a lot larger today, trying to make that comfortable. And if for some reason a garbage truck goes that way or not, they have enough space to circulate through. But there will be no north traffic going in that direction. So we'll have ample wayfinding signage saying do not enter from that side. So any traffic along the south side of the bank building that's parked will have to exit to the west and then go through that north-south connector between the lot 2 there.
And I would assume if people leave the coffee shop, if there becomes a traffic issue where they can't get out on that road right away, it's just going to stack up into the coffee shop lane until people can move.
Correct, and it's not affecting any of the outside Abbeyfield or even the ring road between us and the apartment, so it's really all internal, so it really won't affect any outside traffic. But the coffee shop, the bank now with the technology that the bank has, they're expediting the transaction 30% faster than maybe 20 years ago. So the stack and waiting time in a bank drive-up is a lot quicker. So you won't have that like you would in the coffee. The coffee lane's going to back up longer because of the fancy drinks they want. So it'll really depend on that as they expedite. That's why we did the double lane. There'll be 2 menu boards. So they'll be able to move them through faster, kind of like what a McDonald's does when they do a double stack in their drive up. It goes a lot quicker because they're taking multiple orders faster so they can fulfill the delivery quicker. So that's why the double lane is there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Thanks.
Thank you.
I have one. It's interesting to have a bank and a coffee shop in the same building. I'm just curious if there are other examples of that locally or regionally where it's been successful, or if there's work that you've done
Yes.
to kind of combine 2 businesses in one like that?
So we did a similar project down in Northfield for Heritage Bank with one of his constituents, with a local coffee shop there as well. So it's Heritage Bank and Fireside.
No, it's,
Oh, God, what is it?
it's called the Vault, but I
Yeah.
can't remember what the,
But it was a local coffee
It's a
shop that
local.
had a downtown location without a drive-up, so we married the 2 together. We also did a similar project out in Waconia with Hometown Bank and Mocha Monkey, and now they're working on their 3rd location with that same marriage. So because of the decrease in transaction and lobby traffic and financials, because they're not destinations because of the technology that Mark spoke of earlier, we're trying to drive additional foot traffic to the branch that allows the bank to have an opportunity to cross-sell people while they're in their lobby. So that's why it works really well, because coffee really spreads across a large demographic from young kids to elderly, and everybody in between likes to drink coffee and to hang out and to work on their laptops. So we're just trying to create that synergy to drive more foot traffic to the branch. So, but it's worked really well, and it's not just here locally, it's nationwide. Capital One, same concept. So it's just, coffee works really well because everybody likes it and the aromas are good.
No. And on the floor plan, it seemed like there was maybe a glass partition. I forget exactly how it was worded.
Correct, so there, when the,
Anthony, how do we get to that?
when the bank is closed, we'll have a glass partition wall that'll separate, so that you can still have access to the community room and the coffee, but then you don't have it closed off with a dark wall, so you still have that transparency into the bank, so it just feels more open. We did the same thing at the other branches that we've done, and it's worked really well. It just helps not make the building feel so tight and constrained. So that glass wall is really a good solution there.
Cool. And then the future additional 1,500 square feet, is there anything to share that, or is that just potentially?
There's no plan right now. We just wanted to make sure that we had,
Space.
in the event that we needed, say we were going to add an insurance agency or an investment broker, we would have space to be able to add if we needed to, obviously with going through the proper channels of getting approval, not doing it without permitting or anything like that. But it's not in the next 5 years.
We did their project 5-6 years ago in downtown Rosemount, and day one he moved in, he was maxed out. He goes, don't ever let me do that again. So that's why we're showing the addition,
Yeah.
to have the flexibility. And it just makes the property valuable, because if they were to move out in 30 years, someone could come in and add more square footage to the building if they ever needed it. So, and that's why we have the additional parking to account for that addition. So we need 4 additional stalls. If we add the 1,500, we're still under or over what's required. So there was some thought process behind that as we were designing, so,
When,
This time.
yeah.
with that operable glass wall, so it looks like it would close off the south half of the building? Is that what it would do?
That is correct, yes.
So then when the bank is closed, anyone wanting to go to the coffee shop would go through the employee entrance?
It's not true, if you look at the elevation, it's more than an employee entrance. It has a canopy, it's more of an inviting secondary entrance.
Yeah, it looks like a
It would
normal
have more
entrance.
signage for the coffee there.
Okay.
So it's not a true employee entrance, it is another entrance.
It is another entrance.
'Cause you could
Okay.
come in both, no matter during the day. We just
Okay.
wanted to emphasize the one facing 42 or 145th, so.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
it will act as a second entrance.
It'll act as a second entrance. And then the fireplace section and stuff would not be open for people to sit
Correct.
when the bank isn't open?
Yeah, and when we did this similar project in Waconia, we had the similar layout where the main waiting was shut off from the coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
The coffee shop won't have a ton of visitors on the weekends. It's very a small crew. It's mostly the weekdays, and you get the business
Yep.
people in there, so we've looked at other options. This was the best solution for this
Yeah, no, I think
design.
it's great. I just wanted to clarify how that is. I'm really intrigued by the community room. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you intend for that to be used for?
Well, it will be, right now, in our current facility, we have a smaller conference room, and we really need more space. It'll be used, we'll probably switch off on our board meetings of having access, but similar to what they did in Waconia, our plan is to have it so that there's a sign-up, so that different groups can have access to it. We're not 100% sure if, without having somebody sign up beforehand, that we would have it, 8 o'clock at night. But, if there's people that want to meet, some sort of a Bible study, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, different groups that want to have a meeting, we would make it available.
Yeah, that's great. I love
So-
that great addition to that.
It's just, our MO at the bank is, and you walk into the bank, there's a big sign that says building relationships that last. And we wouldn't be here today if we didn't start in 1909 doing that. And we want to continue that. That's important to my family as the owners of the bank, but also just what we believe in as a community bank, so.
Well, thank you.
I see a set of stairs going down. Do you have space in the basement for storage or?
Yes, there would be a small 1,500 square foot, I think is what it's planned for the basement, but that would be storage, not only for us, but for the coffee shop as
Okay.
well.
And
then
Mechanical, electrical,
mechanical, all that kind of stuff would be
Server.
downstairs.
non-occupied space.
Yeah.
And the lounge is more for your use?
Yeah.
The lounge right next to it?
For ADA purposes, we have to provide a space for our employees
Got it.
to have, to sit, to have lunch, or to take a break. So that's what the lounge would be. Same way with the one bathroom would be for staff, not open to the public, but the two first ones as you come in would be open to the bank and to the coffee shop, so, and to the community room.
Thank you. It's a nice combination of amenities with the coffee shop and the bank and the community.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when we first started looking, I was dead set against it. I'm like, I don't want it. And I went down to my friend down in Northfield, looked at his, and I went, I don't like the way his is set up, but it could work. And then we went out to Waconia and looked at that facility, and I went, we'd be silly not to do it that way. Because they've been doing it for what, 10 years now there?
10 years.
I think all those residents that live over there are going to really love you.
Yeah, and that's the, excuse me, that's the hope, is that we want to expand, we want to grow our base over there, and it's another way to do it, so.
Can you share just at a high level the construction timeline or sort of how you're thinking about when
Well,
this might open?
Our hope, we obviously have to get approval from the state of Minnesota, from the FDIC, our final approval on it. We're hoping,
Yeah, so we already,
Permit-wise.
we have a general contractor on board. We did general contractor interviews already, so they're already pricing it. Our goal is we have final plat, which is, we're submitting this month because we're waiting on the other outlot that Anthony had referred to. We're kind of behind them just because they're leading it. So we'll have final plat approval by the end of May. And then we're hoping to break ground in July is our goal, to get enclosed before the winter comes. I hate talking about winter when it's already coming spring, but that's just,
It's winter today.
It's Minnesota, so. But their hope is they would be done first quarter of next year, and then do a grand opening once the weather got a little nicer, maybe May, June. So about a year from now, they would be ready to roll, so.
Cool.
If it all works, if we get approval. So.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
All right, thank
very
you.
much.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this item tonight? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Reed to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is now closed. So we've got a motion before us. I want to thank the representatives from First State Bank for your insights tonight and for sharing with us. I am super excited about this project. I will say, when I first learned of it, I got a little sad because I thought you were leaving downtown. So I was super excited when I was like, how can they leave downtown? Super excited that you're adding a second location.
I don't think I'd have a job. My 86-year-old mother is dead set against us leaving downtown, so it's not in the plans. She's tough.
Oh, you are a staple down there. So yeah, it's very exciting. I'm excited. Thank you for your investment in the city and for all you do. This sounds like a great project. Anyone else want to comment or make a motion?
Concur. It's great. I think it'd be a great addition to the community, yeah. I'll make a motion. I don't know if this is correct on the screen. I'm going to go off the hard copy or the soft copy here. Motion to approve the planned unit development final site and building plan for First State Bank of Rosemount to construct a combined financial institution and coffee shop subject to the following conditions, number 1 through 5.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Reed and seconded by Commissioner Hebert. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You want to continue with the second motion?
Sure. Motion to recommend the city council approve a conditional use permit allowing drive-through facilities for First State Bank of Rosemount, subject to the following conditions, numbers 1 through 5.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Reed, seconded by Commissioner Hebert. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This item will go forward to the City Council tentatively on April 16th. That concludes that item this evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
We will move on to our fourth public hearing this evening and our final public hearing. This is our zoning code update, Title 11 zoning regulations of the Rosemount City Code, and I will turn it over to Adam to kick us off, and then I'll turn it over to our consultants.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. So the information before the commission tonight is the culmination of approximately a year and a half worth of work with staff and our consultant team who are with us this evening. I'll run through the technical aspects of it, as well as note some of the changes that are being proposed as a part of this process. And also for the public, either in the audience or who may be watching, this is also a result from 3 joint work sessions of the Planning Commission along with our City Council. Also with a more recent work session of the Planning Commission to really fine-tune the components of it. And before I turn it over to our team here, the impetus behind this was really a code that hadn't been updated in something that would be measured in decades. So a lot has changed, both in just, modernization of standards, the usability of the code as it's been, cobbled and changed minorly over those many years. At some point, it started to develop some slight inconsistencies or just lack of clarity. So a lot of what will be discussed tonight is really all under that umbrella to improve usability, clarity, as well as modernization of our code to continue to promote the type of development that Rosemount is experiencing and embracing. So with that, I will turn it over to our consultants, Jeff Miller and then Beth Richmond from HKGI. They have a series of slides to run through, as well as the ability to answer any questions here. This is a public hearing that is scheduled tonight for Planning Commission, and then we can certainly take any questions and talk about next steps after the presentation and questions are wrapped up. So with that, Madam Chair, I would ask that you turn it over to our team here.
The floor is yours.
Great. Madam Chair, Commissioners, we have a somewhat brief presentation since you've seen most of this content before, so we'll try to go through it fairly quickly. There's an overview of it, the public hearing, and then your discussion and the recommendation to the council, hopefully at the end.
And while we've been through it a number of times, we might have an audience that is hearing it for the first time. So
Right.
keep that in mind. Even though there's no one here with us,
Right.
they still might be watching online.
Yep, thanks for saying that. So the key zoning code updates that we've been talking about are reorganizing, reformatting, and simplifying the code language throughout the whole code. A priority has been to update the zoning districts so that they reflect the adopted 2040 comprehensive plan. To address the Highway 42 mixed-use nodes, which you have an example tonight of some development happening there. So there's a new zoning district in the code for those areas. Modernizing the district's standards to reflect market trends. Overall, cleaning up standards, separating out the general versus the district standards, and then adding use-specific standards. That's a new chapter in the code. And then complying with state and federal requirements. The structure of the code is being streamlined somewhat from 13 to 10 chapters. And unlike your current code, which has really big chapters and really small chapters, we've really tried to organize things better to be more intuitive, if zoning can be intuitive, so that it flows the way people would probably use it. So it's the residential districts are near the top, non-residential after that, then overlay districts, but they're in separate places. Then the use-specific standards, general being parking, landscaping, screening, that sort of thing, lighting, then signage, then the procedures that property owners and or developers would go through with their applications, and then lastly, all the definitions in one place. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth.
So we did just want to, again, kind of give that overview of how the districts are or are not changing.
So for the residential districts themselves, you'll see that we are proposing to eliminate 2 of those districts, the RL and the R1A. The RL is a district that is not actually applied anywhere on your zoning map today, and so we're recommending that you remove it just to streamline things. And then the R1A, these properties will primarily be absorbed into the R1 district with some into the R2 as well. The R1 and R1A have fairly similar standards for uses and district standards, and so that's why it seemed like a more appropriate place for those. Again, just trying to streamline the different districts. The R1 does have a few changes related to the dimensional requirements and the uses that are allowed. So setback requirements for the R1 district, this is something that we did discuss at the last work session, I believe, to allow 7.5-foot side yard setbacks as opposed to 10-foot, which I believe is what you have today. Again, there is that exception for the lots that were formerly R1A, or lots that were platted before 1979, since there is already a developed pattern for the setbacks that those lots have created. And then we did just want to specify that, again, 2-unit dwellings are not something that are proposed to be allowed in this R1 district. They're not there today. They're not proposed to be added to that. The lot area minimums is something that we also looked at for the residential districts in particular. So the R1 and the R2 districts have minimums that were decreased, and primarily this is due to 2 different factors. One is that the density requirements in the comprehensive plan weren't necessarily matching up with your lot area minimums. So you're required to have a certain amount of units per acre per your comprehensive plan. We wanted to make sure that the lot area minimums for the R1 and the R2 districts are generally matching up with that density requirement. And then the second reason was market trends. So in the recent past here, the city has seen a number of different developments come in that are requesting smaller lots. And so in response to that, those lot area minimums were proposed to be reduced. And then lot width requirements were also proposed to be reduced just in reflection of that. The other change that you'll see as part of this section of the code is that there are now lot minimums not only by district, but also by housing type. So there's specific lot minimums for twin homes, townhomes, that sort of thing in each different district where they're allowed, because there are different standards for lots depending on the type of housing that you're talking about. So mixed use and commercial districts, Jeff already touched on this. The big change here is that MX2, so your highway mixed use district. That's something, again, that direction came out of the comprehensive plan and some of the additional planning that the city has done. So you'll see on this chart that there's kind of a consolidation of districts. So there's still a downtown mixed use district that has a different abbreviation, but acts primarily how it does today. Then you have that MX2, that highway mixed use, which is kind of a mix of the C3 and C4 districts today. Then there's a general business district, which is a mix of the C4 and C1 districts. And then there's an employment district, or B2, which is basically the business park that the city has today. So trying to make those, the abbreviations and the district numbering make sense, as well as allowing those different mixed-use districts and business districts. I did want to touch a little bit more on that MX2 district. So again, this is something that was created in conformance with some of the planning that's been done, both for the Highway 42 development vision, as well as for the 2040 comprehensive plan. And the main goal here is that these are nodes that are either anticipated to see or are already seeing development. And the city was really focused on making sure that those areas are truly mixed use and that they are remaining primarily commercial, so that they're not becoming just a residential node. And so, again, this is just the map that's kind of showing where those areas are. But we did want to touch on, and I know there's a lot of text on this screen, but we did want to touch on the discussion that we all had and the kind of what came out of that as far as the requirements that we did put into the code to make sure that those areas do retain primarily commercial use. So residential uses would be prohibited along street frontages within 500 feet of any kind of major intersection. So the intersection of Highway 42 and any collector or arterial road. And then within each development site that occurs within an MX2 district, no more than 25% of that net buildable area is allowed to be used solely for residential purposes. So if you have a mixed-use building, that's a different story, but if there's just an apartment building, that can only take up 25% of the net buildable area. And then we did write in another kind of condition where within each node, so those nodes that you see on the screen there, property owners would be able to kind of transfer some of that 25% if they could agree amongst themselves to do so, so that one area might be more heavily residential, but the node as a whole is capped at that 25% purely residential. So trying to give a little flexibility with still making sure that, that those areas stay commercial as they're intended. As far as the other districts go, industrial districts, we did consolidate quite a few. So the IP, LI, and GI districts are all being consolidated into the I1. And then the HI and waste management are consolidated into I2. And I believe Jeff's got some maps that will show a little bit better kind of what that means, looking at the city as a whole. And then the two agricultural districts and the public district are proposed to stay the same. So different abbreviation, but the districts themselves are the same. I think we're getting to the end of my piece of this. So the uses and the dimensional standards for all of these different districts are now in tables. So instead of listing them in text multiple times, we have split. So there's Chapter 3 is agricultural and residential districts, and that has tables for principal uses, accessory uses, and then lot dimensions and site dimensions. And then Table 4 is the non-residential districts, and that has those same tables as well. It's easier to compare. It's a little bit easier to read as well. So, turn it back to you.
Did you cover those?
I can, sure. So the other piece here is development standards. This is things like landscaping, fencing, parking. These are the three main areas, so parking, landscaping, and signage, that we did kind of make some smaller tweaks to. So parking, the main goal here was to make sure that all of the uses in the use tables have parking requirements, and then we wanted to make sure that those were right-sized. So we talked about things like for apartment buildings, making sure that those are done by bedroom versus by unit to try to get at the fact that maybe a studio apartment probably doesn't need 2 spaces of parking, whereas a 3-bedroom may need that amount. So trying to right-size that. There were also some small changes made to a few other of the parking uses to make it easier for staff to calculate. So using gross square footage as a measurement, for example, instead of saying, well, it's the number of employees on the maximum work shift, and then having to go through that kind of workaround of what does that actually mean, and staff has to try to figure that out. For signage, the main goal there was to update for content neutrality, which is again something that was coming out of some recent court decisions. And then there were updates to dynamic display signs, which we had a nice discussion about as well, talking about how long a message can be displayed, the different colors that would be allowed. So we talked a little bit about that and made some changes there. And then landscaping, the primary change there was to update the minimum planting requirements. Do you want me to keep going? Sure. So this is a slide that we did talk about at the last Planning Commission workshop. You'll see that the existing is on the left there, and what we really tried to do for the proposed is to kind of condense down those different uses. Coming out of our discussion in that workshop, you'll see that there is a slight change to the planting requirements for multi-unit residential. Previously, we had lumped those in with multi-unit residential, commercial, industrial, all of those types of uses. But from that discussion, it sounded like those uses should probably be treated a little bit differently as far as the landscaping goes. And so multi-unit residential is proposed to require 1 overstory or coniferous tree per 1,000 square feet of land area. And we looked at a number of model codes to kind of get to that number. And then the all other uses is one overstory tree per 3,000 square feet of land area, which is what you have today. So that's not a change. The last change with landscaping is that we did add a provision to kind of give the city more ability to enforce landscaping maintenance if that's ever needed. So there is now a requirement that damaged, diseased, or dead landscape materials shall be replaced so that the requirements of this chapter are met, and then that's a requirement that runs with the land. So regardless of if that land is sold, the current property owner is held to that requirement in perpetuity. So, no, this one's yours.
Just kidding. You can tell we work together. So Beth was the landscape expert, and then I got brought in at the end to try to look at some stuff too. So sorry for the confusion on that. But so we're going to talk about the zoning map, but just as a reminder, and if I don't do it, Adam or Anthony will remind you, no action is being taken on the zoning map at tonight's meeting. There will be a separate future public hearing specifically about the map. But we are going to talk about the map and provide information that we think will help you understand the impacts of the zoning code updates. So this is based on the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. So we have looked at the map and what those impacts are, and they're not very significant. So so this is the current zoning map. And you have the comp plan map, and the intention is that the zoning map's going to be in alignment with the future land use map. The intent is not to amend the comp plan. So, and then this is the proposed zoning map. I think you received this for the last meeting, is that correct?
We received it this weekend, or Friday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We
Thursday.
sent it for this meeting. You're right. Okay. So this is the proposed map with the new districts. I think we said it, but it's going from 20 to 13 or 21 to 13 districts. So we're streamlining those districts, and that was one of the main intents of the RFP that the city put out for updating the code. And so as far as where the changes are going to be on the map, we'll start with this map. So these are we're only showing the properties that are going to change their zoning. Is that right? Am I saying that right? And then in the legend, so I'm just going to kind of walk through here. Up in the upper right-hand corner by the river, along the river, that's changing because today, on the current map, that's zoned floodplain, which is not actually a zoning district, that's an overlay district. And so all we've done on the zoning map, if I go back, is we're adding an underlying zoning district, which is agricultural A2. So it's not really a change, it's just that there was not really a base zoning district on that land. So, and that's where the Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area Act land also is. If we keep going, the consolidations that Beth went over, so the first one is I-1, and so we're just showing on the map the number of properties that are IP, LI, or GI going to I-1. Also the consolidation of 2 districts into I-2, 3 districts into B1, mostly 2 districts, just 1 business park district or property. And then the R1A to R1, and then we're showing the rezoning of land to MX1 in the downtown area. There's a few properties there that are being rezoned. And then all of the MX2 is showing up on here. So this map's showing the current districts that are changing on the zoning map, which we're not taking action on tonight, just a reminder. And then these are the proposed districts, so you can see where the changes are happening. And then we can come back to this, but I'm just going to walk through it really quickly, the significance of it. So for the MX1 district, which is currently called the downtown district, there's just 8 non-downtown properties that are being rezoned. So they're on the edges, there's a couple in the middle, It's just filling out that district, the properties that make sense to be mixed use. For the MX2 district, it's just properties at those 4 nodes, so that's what's showing up on the map. And that's a new district, so that's why that's a rezoning. And then there's 4 consolidations, so I'll go through those really quick. So R1, R1A, the districts are almost, the standards are almost the same. So that's part of the reason why the 2 districts are being consolidated. And Beth already covered this. The one exception is the side yard setback, and that's going to be an exemption in the table that says lots platted prior to 1979 have the smaller setbacks, and those are the R1A districts today, or properties today. For the B1, that's consolidating on the current map, C1 and C4 properties. There's only 2 properties that are zoned C1 today. So it's basically consolidating C1 into C4, and they currently have the same standards for setbacks, building height, that sort of thing. So it's not a big change for those districts. It's just consolidating them, C1 basically into C4. And then we are bringing one additional property, or rezoning one, proposing to rezone one additional property to be one that's currently business park. And that's the, help me out, Anthony, that's the brewery, light manufacturing.
Yeah.
Restaurant.
Omni Brewing, so farm winery type.
Yeah, so that unique combination of uses actually does fit the B1 district, so it can just go there. The I1 district, the new I1 district is consolidating 3 districts. But it's not a big deal because there's only 1 property that's zoned IP or industrial park. There's only 2 properties currently zoned light industrial, and the dimensional standards, so they will match the GI district. So there's just 3 properties that have a little change to their standards. And then lastly, the I2 district is a consolidation of the heavy industrial and the waste management districts on the current map. The waste, composting, recycling uses in the future will still require an interim use permit in the I2 district, and the dimensional standards match the heavy industrial district. So I think that's it. So just again, the map. So you have time to look at this map after tonight, because this is not being proposed to be recommended for approval yet. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Adam or Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get into the next steps, right? Or did you want me
Yep.
to run through some of that?
Yeah, so next steps are, after the public hearing and your discussion, we would incorporate those updates into the final draft, and that would then go to the council, and I don't believe a date has been set for that yet.
Yeah, and maybe I'll jump in and speak to that. So, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, the proposal, and it's noted in the staff memo for you this evening. So this is a public hearing this evening as we kind of drive towards the finality of this project, and that's one of the required steps, is to hold a public hearing to consider these changes to the zoning code within our city code. The proposal would then be to bring that to City Council in May. So typically, items that come before the Planning Commission make it to the 2 council meetings after that recommendation. And the reason behind that is it allows us some additional time to provide some additional educational material out to the public. There is a website dedicated to this project. A link to this meeting and any discussion that we're to have yet tonight will be available directly linked onto there. Because it is a pretty complex topic, there's a lot of nuance and complexity to it. Make sure that there's ample time for any members of the public to contact staff to answer any questions prior to it going even before the city council. And then the other recommendation that's noted in there is that an additional public hearing would be held by the city council. So that way any recommendations or proposed changes that come out of this group or from the public are all able to also be voiced to the city council at that point in time. Again, it's not necessarily to debate some of the definitions and stuff in there, so those are mostly technical and based on best practices, and our hope and suggestion this evening is that those will largely be recommended by this group. But to answer any questions, because we do want to acknowledge that this isn't just, yep, we did the public hearing, yep, it went through and then it was approved, and there can be a lot of confusion or misinformation out there if something like that is kind of pushed through that public part of the process. Even though this has been in the works for over a year and a half now, we want to make sure that it has the visibility necessary so people are comfortable with these changes as they're taking place. And it also allows us to publish an article in the upcoming spring newsletter that goes out to every home in the community, making them aware of these changes. There was an article in this last week's local paper. We did put out a press release to the paper. They did choose to run it, so that was additional information, not just something buried in the back in the public hearing section. But there was a more of an educational and an informational article that was included in the recent newspaper, just so that when it is before council, everybody can hopefully feel fully informed, engaged, and have the comfort to move forward with a final recommendation as we move to adopt this updated city code. And then what Jeff and Beth were running through would be then adopting proposed changes to the zoning map, which would then align with the updated code. So I don't know if you guys had anything else to kind of round out this presentation, but Madam Chair, it is a public hearing and we can take any questions on content, process, et cetera.
Sounds good. Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission?
Yeah, I guess one, and I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but with the R1 zoning, and I think we said the proposed change is to change the minimum side yard setback from 10 to 7.5. So if I'm a resident, current resident in what would be R1, and when my house was built, we had 10-yard setbacks, my neighbor has 10-yard setback. Would the new minimum apply to me, or would the old, when my house was built, the 10-yard apply? 10 foot,
So,
sorry.
for any lots that have already been built upon, if they were to do an expansion, or if they were to knock the house down and start over, that new 7.5 foot would apply. Obviously, you can always build further back from the property line, but any new movement going forward, it would be the 7.5 that would apply. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was like one of the few that stood out as like as a resident and homeowner that might impact me. Is it a little more flexibility now on the side yard setbacks. And the other question would be on the landscape clause we're putting in with the more teeth. That doesn't apply to, that would not apply to to builders that have already built their or finished their plans, right? Or would that apply to builders who have completed their plans?
Let's see. So it would apply, it would apply to kind of moving forward anyone in the city that is doing a landscaping plan. So you're more asking about if people are grandfathered in.
So if we saw a plan and approved it and it was 90% opacity, landscaping with 90% opacity was what we said in the plan. And they've completed their building, they've gone through their approval with the city, and now it's 2 years later, and it's not 90%. Does this apply to them or no?
I don't believe it would, no.
Okay.
Commissioner Reed, and this was a topic that did come up with our group at the last meeting, if I recall. The city is also working on additional mechanisms for enforcement of the code through a different type of code enforcement. It would be more applicable through there versus, correct, the inability to enforce something that going forward would be running with the land with those types of approvals, so it wouldn't be retroactive to those. But hopefully there's some comfort in knowing that we'll have additional enforcement opportunities that we're exploring with the city council for enforcing our zoning code.
Very good, thank you.
Just to tee off of that, so with the new landscaping piece, if they were required to put in 20 trees, and after 3 years, 15 of them died, even though it was already approved, they would, with this new teeth, that would still apply to them to have to replace them, right?
Correct.
Okay. So even though it's already approved and built and stuff, this piece about having to keep your landscaping within what was required would apply.
Correct.
Is it my understanding too that that's transferable to the next business owner that
Yep,
happens to buy that property? They have to continue with that.
that's correct, yep.
And does it also apply to homeowners? So if a homeowner removed their trees, I mean, not that we're going to go on and enforce that, right?
Well, that's a good question, Madam Chair, because we do have, developers come in, they develop a neighborhood and they put in the trees where it's 1 tree per interior lot and 2 per corner. And then we go out to look to make sure the trees survived a year. Well, whoever bought the house didn't want a tree there, so they took it out. So I guess the question is to the commission, the reality is we would enforce that, right? And make them put that tree back.
If there was a complaint brought in front of this kind of new board or something, right?
Sure.
If only if it played out that way.
I mean, the city's not driving around looking for those houses that
Right.
got rid of their tree necessarily, but
Only to release landscaping sureties to the developers.
yeah, I mean, obviously, we have tree requirements for the city for reasons and purposes, and that should be there. But I don't think the city's gonna spend its time enforcing.
Certainly, like a tree in front of a house is not there to provide screening between
Right.
differing uses and things like that.
Yes, Commissioner Whitman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a question on the same topic with the run with the land. My question is more of just a kind of a legal framework question. My understanding is when, to run with the land, there needs to be an actual recordable instrument on the property that makes that run with the land. So just the fact that it says run with the land, the zoning code, from my perspective, does not make it run with the land. What is that recordable instrument that would be recorded on the property that would transfer it to a subsequent owner? What's an example of that?
Because we don't currently have that, that's something that we'd certainly review with our city attorney before this would
Okay.
be approved or come into effect. So whether it's a covenant or something
Yeah.
else, I'd be recorded with.
Yeah, variances and things like that get recorded with properties too.
So we have yet to work out that mechanism specifically, but there are a number of, that would be off the top of our head, the best way to approach that.
Perfect, thank you.
Today sorry, Commissioner Whitman, if I can just jump in and stay in that same thread for a minute. Today, when a developer comes in and whether it's a PUD or just an application, does it get recorded like, this is the landscape plan, you're gonna have 23 trees and?
So planned unit development agreements contain attachments that include development plans, among other things, and those are recorded with the county because those plans are essentially the zoning code for that specific site.
Okay, so that then would continue to go with that planned unit development and is recorded then, does that?
Yeah, that's one example.
That would be one example,
But
and so much.
not
of our-
everything's a planned unit
Right.
development, right? So there needs to be some
Except for in our
recorded
city.
document if we're holding this, if we truly
Yeah.
want this to have teeth.
Yep, I appreciate you calling that out.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner Whitman, I mean, that's exactly the argument between a higher standard versus the current standard that we employ for landscaping standards. Currently, and, we've seen various levels of success through it, is that, we're collecting escrow to install and make sure that the minimum types of plantings survive for that full growing season, and then those dollars are returned back, because that's currently the teeth that the city has to make sure that, let's say the plant dies off, instead of us trying to pursue some sort of enforcement or legal action against a property owner, we have an escrow that is held to be able to replace that if they won't comply with it. So this is a little different, but it certainly has some potential drawbacks, I believe, as Commissioner Whitman is exploring with us as a part of that, is that typically it's done through a planned unit development. Not everything is a planned unit development. Is this then a separate recordable document that's done with every type of application that has a landscape requirement? So it's not just a good thing. There are certainly some challenges that would come with this type of a component.
And I definitely appreciate the comment of checking in with the city attorney and just making sure that it's, those are lawful mechanisms that you have in place, so it's great. I have another.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you.
I
I also wanted to provide support for your comment, Adam, about that there will be a second public hearing, right, at the city council. I was gonna ask that question just to clarify whether this was the only public hearing, but you answered that to say there will be a subsequent public hearing. So I think that's great, especially for something of this magnitude and complexity. But just in general, I think it shows how really the city is being transparent to residents and providing those opportunities. So I, really love to hear that. My final comment or question is on the 25% limitation of residential use in the mixed use nodes. And I know we discussed this in work sessions and so it's not a new topic, for us. Just for the record, though, I wanted to ask the question, where does this 25% number, where is that derived from? Like, how do we choose 25%?
That, I believe, was just kind of a conversation between, at that work session with Planning Commission and council and staff, trying to figure out what is the right number as far as a solely residential space. So there's not a magic calculation that we did, but the idea was that there wanted to be an emphasis on that commercial, make sure that is the primary, not a 50-50 kind of ratio. But there's not a magic calculation that we did that we got to that number. It was just kind of seemed appropriate as far as the balance of uses.
Yeah, I think we looked at the visioning concepts and said,
You're right.
it looks
You're
like
right, we
about
did that.
25% of these nodes are residential.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's what I recall too. I thought it aligned with that,
Yeah.
that vision and concept and that, so, but yeah, no, thank you for that. And then I wanted to ask, what happens if a property owner comes forward with a project and they believe it's a, fantastic project, they have everything in place, but they have a reasonable belief that 25% is not a number that's reachable. Let's say they have 30% residential or something, over 25%. What would be is there a possibility of getting that project through, and what would be the mechanism of them doing that? Is that a variance? Is that what process? Or are we locking it in saying, you get an application, it's over 25, like try again, I'm just asking what sort of, if that happens, what would be that process?
So the first piece of that is that last bullet, we did try to build in a little bit of flexibility. So if they can work with their neighboring property owners and try to kind of get that number, then you do have some flexibility to go over. But then the second piece where you're talking about, is it a variance, is it a PUD, kind of what mechanism works. I think with this one would probably be a variance, unless there's some other pieces that would need to be a PUD for some reason, but that to me would make sense, is to do that process.
Yeah, I guess a PUD could vary from that, because you'd have that flexibility too, I think, right?
Correct, yeah. The PUD process is nice because it really does allow for kind of a comprehensive look at a proposed development. I don't know without an application in front of us, making findings for a variance for something like that would be tricky.
Difficult.
Yeah.
But
it
isn't. I would say though, it is not without the realm of possibility that someone could come forward and get something through, but it would go through the public hearing process before the Planning Commission, and then go to the council, and there'd likely be some significant discussion about what it was, and is it worth being flexible?
Whereas if 25% is followed, there would be it would be a less arduous process and,
Right.
and less costly process probably to go through. Is that right?
Yeah.
And Commissioner Whitman, that's a good point, because, part of the intent of this entire process is to streamline where we've seen consistent types of approvals take place, as well as setting an expectation on the front end, rather than subjectivity through a public process where a developer has already expended their own money on an uncertainty. So it's really helping to provide a sense of certainty on the front end for a developer, so they can design their project largely around the requirements that are, again, being discussed tonight, but hopefully would be approved here sometime yet this summer, so that it isn't a back and forth or deviations being requested for every type of project that we have coming in.
Thank you.
Minimize the
Yeah.
risk on the front end.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Thank you to all of you for that. I see that it's the same thing. I see it as a streamlining provision, helping make the process easier. Of course, there's other avenues for different projects, but it may not be that streamlined, easy process. There might be public hearings, there might be more discussion, there might be more challenges. But no, I support this provision. I just wanted to ask those questions just for clarification on the record. So thank you. That's all I have.
If I could just add to that, we work with cities on mixed-use districts quite a bit, and sometimes cities want to require that they be mixed-use, so they'd say, everything has to be a mixed-use building or have mixed-use, a mix of uses. This is more flexible than that. I mean, this is a parameter, but I'd say it's pretty flexible, unlike cities where they say, we know cities that have districts that require it, and the market just might not be there. So the variance approach to me seems like there might be potential for that, because somebody might be able to come in and say, I know the market, and I need to do residential because commercial is just not a strong market for this area. I suppose that would be a potential. But this is more flexible than some of the other districts we've worked on.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission?
I just had a comment, or I know we're not approving the maps per se tonight, we're just kind of glancing and taking a look, but for one, the map that shows the difference between them is super helpful. So that one right there, I think that's.
That one we didn't see till tonight.
Yeah, so that's going to be very helpful, because it's hard to know what's the differences between the two if you don't have something like that, so that's great. And then at some point for the legend or the draft that's proposed, comparing it to the original, will it be more defined instead of just A2, R3? Over here, it kind of explains it a little bit more so that the normal layperson in the city can go, oh, I know what.
Oh, so
M2 is.
like A2 agriculture or
Yeah, like these have,
B1 business,
these
general
actually have like
business.
sections, commercial.
Yeah, the names.
That would be helpful if
can do
that
that.
could be something
Yep.
similar.
And that would certainly be a mapping exercise, and part of it, I'll add some additional context just for, kind of
Yeah.
everybody else watching this at some point. We do have our own in-house GIS staff, so we do have the ability, and we've done that with other maps that we maintain internally. Granted, our consultant team has developed the proposed map using the same tool that pretty much every city and planner uses through GIS to do it. We always have the ability to tweak what's shown, how it's represented on the map, so.
Yeah.
Yes, I think is the answer you're looking
The
for.
audience is more than the GIS people and the planners,
Exactly.
so, okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? I had just a couple. So if we have questions on the map, we should hold those, right? Is that, yes?
It doesn't hurt to bring anything up right now. I mean, the conversation is largely centered on the code provisions that are being
Okay.
updated, but they will translate into future map changes. So if you have something that's either inconsistent or you'd like to ask questions on.
Well, and we don't have to discuss it tonight because I know we're getting, time is going, but I was curious as to it was interesting to me that all the commercial development on County Road 42, like where Cub is and all of that, was made B1, and then our nodes of development went, like the C3, C4 went to MX2, and all that red, that Cub area was also C4, but it went to B1. So I was just curious on why, because it's right off of 42 too, so even though it's developed, I still personally see it as, also as maybe that highway mixed use.
Beth, if you can toggle back to the 42 map that showed the visioning study results.
Yep.
And maybe because it's not mixed use, like maybe that's,
Correct, so the
is that the
new,
difference?
yeah, so the new MX2 district as shown here was a direct reflection of that visioning exercise conducted through the
So
port.
just those nodes then?
Correct.
Got it, okay, that answers it. That was easy. Put that question to bed, I don't remember anymore. I did have just a couple of comments on the zoning code updates. One, Beth, we talked earlier about removing the ash. I think we in our work session talked about that too. And I confirmed with Anthony earlier today that the list of landscape trees, we should remove ash. And then, you know, this is more of a nitpicky thing on my part, and you'll all be glad when I'm done reading this, because every time I read it, I find more. But the major roadways, Anthony, I kind of talked about it earlier today too. Like, sometimes we coupled Akron and the county road, we coupled 150th and County Road 42, but some were separate. Anthony said maybe we should just use our city road names and not the county roads. Like some things were doubled up, some things weren't. So I was like, well, why do we have McAndrews and 38 listed separately? You know, things like that. And then this one, if you can address on the parking, the dwelling, the 3 to 4 unit, we got rid of the guest parking requirement. And so if you could just kind of maybe shed some light on what that was. I don't remember discussion on that one.
Yeah, so I would say the zoning districts, we added housing types, so there's more housing types identified. So 3 to 4 units wouldn't have been an identified housing type, I'm assuming in the parking section of the code. And the way we've been dealing with housing types is 2 unit, 3, 4 unit, they're lower density housing types. They're more like single family. And so we've tended not to have guest parking be part of those housing types. Not that you couldn't, and not that builders couldn't build the parking to include guest parking, but if the intent is to make it easier to build other housing types, kind of the thing that goes along with that is keeping the parking requirements lower as well. And where you want to draw that line of guest parking's part of the equation or not, that's up to you. I mean, we can add that if you
Okay,
feel
no, I was
strongly
just
about
curious
that.
on the kind of removal of it, you know, because it's still listed as a residential use, dwelling 3 to 4 unit in the parking table, but it's 2 enclosed spaces per unit is the requirement, and it used to be 2 enclosed spaces plus half a guest space per unit. So
Yeah.
I was just curious on the.
Yeah, so I think it's just that approach of, these are housing types that are low density, and if you can, you know, hold the parking requirements lower rather than higher.
Okay.
And they're you know, they're only 3 or 4 units, so it's not.
And it would be typical that in a 3 to 4 unit, they would have driveways, so there would be parking in the driveway.
Yeah, they would, and we do have neighborhoods with like quads or 4-unit buildings that don't have guest parking. They were approved without it. I think the point that the update is trying to make is that there are townhome neighborhoods, and they are private streets and things like that, and then there are parcels with 3 or 4 units buildings on them that could conceivably be just on public streets and not like a townhome community.
A community with.
So there's different definitions for dwelling, comma, townhomes, and then dwelling, comma, 3 and 4 unit.
Okay.
And so it's treating those 2 uses differently.
I think what got me was the 2 enclosed spaces per unit, and then the removal of the guest parking, but I'm like, well, where would their guests park? But they would have the driveway, so that would, to me, the driveway is your guest parking.
Yeah.
Then, okay.
And on the street.
Yeah. Okay. That concludes my questions. Last call for any other questions. Okay, this is a public hearing item still. So at this time, I will open up the public hearing. Anyone in the audience who would like to speak may do so at this time, coming to the podium, stating your name and address for the record. Seeing that we have no one in the audience except for Jeff and Beth to speak, and they've already spoken. Did you guys have anything else you want to say as part of the public hearing?
Madam Chair, if I can maybe add one thing, it's just a part of that record or that note, is that the intent is that we've captured everything here tonight. There's, of course, a possibility that something may have been missed or overlooked. Just like any code within our city, we always have the ability to update and amend the city code. So we do that with some sort of regularity, whether it's identifying something that was either inconsistent or done. We're just doing that en masse for this update, which certainly doesn't preclude us from doing additional updates in the future if something maybe isn't working as I thought it would as a part of this for future conversations. So while this is a big change now, it's not permanent and certainly not forever.
Sounds good. Anything else?
I would just like to add, too, for anyone listening, that staff is very eager and enthusiastic to speak with anyone personally if they have specific questions that they would like answered. Our contact information is available on the city website, as well as a page under the community development page of the city's website dedicated specifically to the zoning code update. And yes, please reach out directly.
Sounds good. With that, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kenninger and seconded by Commissioner Tiergarten to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Public hearing is now closed. And so with that, we have a action before us tonight to recommend this to the City Council. So I will go ahead and make a recommendation to,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I just say something?
yes.
I just want to say, awesome job. This is such a critical, important thing that we're doing to update the zoning code. Consistency and clarity is so important for, any local laws, but zoning code in particular. And I know since I've been here as the planning commissioner, I think this might be my 1-year anniversary around today. But it's been in the works, and I know it's been a long process, and people have put in a lot of time and thought into this. But I just want to thank you two and staff just for a tremendous job on all of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitman. I will make a motion to recommend the City Council adopt the amended code at one of their meetings in May.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kenninger, seconded by Commissioner Whitman. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I will just echo Commissioner Whitman's comments. Thank you, Jeff and Beth, for all your time and for putting up with all of my questions and comments. I appreciate it. I am happy to not have to read the document again. Although it was lots of fun. I won't be sad. So, and thank you to city staff. I know we have, it's almost like a comprehensive plan work. Like it's been a long time in the works, as our comprehensive plan work is a long time in the works. So thank you for all your time and effort to get this cleaned up. And I know you guys are so excited to be able to use it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I am looking forward to reading this code over and over again.
Well, you go for it, Anthony.
Madam Chair, and certainly recognize our planners, Anthony and Julie, here tonight. But we also had plenty of others that played a part in this process. Want to make sure that they're recognized as a part of this. I mean, Alicia read through this thing in all of its all of its detail, as well as Eric, our economic development coordinator, to also provide that aspect of it. All of these roles falling within community development, but it's certainly not just super hyper focused on planning, but economic development, building, engineering, public works, as well as communications, and making sure that we can communicate this out correctly to the public. So just a big thank you to everybody involved.
Yes, a big thank you to the whole team that worked on it.
Yeah.
With that, that concludes our public hearing section this evening. Is there any new business?
There's not.
Okay, we have discussion items. Real quick, I did do this at the last meeting, just in case they weren't able to make it tonight, because things happen in life. But this is our last meeting with Commissioner Javier and Commissioner Tiergarten, so I just want to thank you guys again for your time and your service, and we've enjoyed having you as part of our Planning Commission board here and team. We wish you luck in your next endeavors and appreciate the service you're going to give to our community and to those in your next endeavors as well.
Thanks for having us.
And then one other item of discussion before we jump to our next meeting list. Oh, I should, before I move too far off, the zoning code update. For anyone still watching, that is tentatively going to City Council on May 7th. So watch that, and as Anthony said, you can reach out to the team at the city offices with any questions. And moving on to, I also want to take a moment to recognize Anthony. This has been a long time coming and is way overdue because it just seemed our meetings just kept missing. But Anthony was awarded the City of Rosemount Employee of the Year for 2023. And so Anthony, we all know how wonderful you are. And you make our jobs a lot easier. It's much well-deserved. Congratulations, and thank you for everything you do for the city.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Anthony. And with that, I will review our next meeting dates. We have April 23rd. We're back to the fourth Tuesday, everybody. April 23rd, May 28th, and June 25th, all fourth Tuesdays of the month. It's been a while since we've been on the fourth Tuesday, I feel like. Is there anything else from a discussion standpoint before we adjourn? Nothing? Okay, with that, I will adjourn our meeting. Meeting adjourned.